Welcome, everybody, to a very special live stream today. Today, I am joined by Zane Griggs, and we're going to have a chat. It's just going to be a casual chat talking about our stories. We have some, parallel stories as far as nutrition goes, and we're just going to be, chatting it up about how things have changed in the wellness world recently and our own experiences. So if you are watching live, definitely let us know where you're watching from. Say hi. If you have any questions that come up during the live stream, feel free to put those in the chat. If you put a QQQ in front of the question, it helps us just see it highlighted. We'll probably still see it, but that just helps us a little bit. So yeah, I see there's a few people on and hopefully more will start rolling in, but definitely say hi in the live. All right, we have our first comment. Very exciting. From Devin, been waiting for this. Zane is making his rounds. Yes. Yeah, you are you're talking to all the movers and shakers in this.
Well, I find myself fortunate to actually have the opportunity to talk to other people who are dealing with the same thing. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, well, while people are still rolling in, I wanted to ask you, just for my viewers who are joining in that may not know you, I'd love for you to share kind of your story, your nutrition story, kind of where you've been and things that have changed and where you're at now. And yeah, let's just get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Well, it goes back a ways. I've started doing this a long time ago. So in the mid 90s, I was in my early mid 20s. I saw that I had uncles that were really struggling with different forms of metabolic disease, mostly around heart disease and diabetes. My dad wasn't. He had paid attention to his diet. He was always exercising. So I thought, okay, there's got to be a way I can avoid this. For some reason, in my 20s, I was feeling a little bit of mortality, and I was looking ahead and saying, okay, this seems to be a pattern, but I don't want to repeat it. And so I started experimenting with diet, reading books, asking people questions, actually experiment with the vegan / vegetarian kind of back and forth there diet back at that time for about 3.5 years. That didn't end well. I lost a lot of muscle, was tired, fatigued, got picked up a virus I shouldn't have been able to pick up, should have been able to fight off. And that was kind of like the turning point where I added some fish, some eggs, a little whey protein in, felt way better. So that was one of my first experiments with diet. And shortly after that, became a trainer and started working with people, most of the people wanting to reverse some form of insulin resistance, mostly weight loss, but realizing that, there was that the current recommendations at the time, the dietary recommendations, weren't adequate. They weren't doing it. So that's when I started digging a little more into low carb and really began recommending low carb to my weight loss clients in 2002. So kind of early, and did that, stuck with low carb as a recommendation for close to 20 plus years, a little over 20 years. 2010 started incorporating more intermittent fasting into my own routine and fasted workouts, and then recommending those definitely by 2012, I was recommending those to my clients. So low carb on top of intermittent fasting, fasted workouts. I was cranking cortisol it was like my mantra. It was like I bragged about it, get other people to do it. I thought, oh, this is all this stress, this hormetic stress, right? Very proud of myself for doing this, And then I started feeling a little run down. And by this time, I'm in my late 40s, and I'm feeling overtrained, burning, bad sleep, like burning walking upstairs, not working out. And some of my metabolic markers were not, like TSH, my thyroid stimulating hormone, was a little out of whack. It was too high. So thyroid's struggling a bit. And some issues with that would point to high cortisol, right? Like sex hormone binding globulin was really high, out of range. So there was just a lot of things saying I was overdoing it. I was over cranking all of this stress, and was finally catching up with me to a point that I couldn't deny it anymore. Like I'd probably overcome some of it from youth or being in 30s, early 40s, and now it just couldn't be ignored. It wasn't a good idea then. It's just that, I overcame it. And so I started digging in. Like I basically started, okay, what do I need to to change. And at first that would have been fasting and started adding some carbs in. And that's about a little more than 2 years ago, I really started increasing my carb intake and tracking everything. The other marker I didn't mention was my blood sugar was always in the my fasting blood sugar blood test was always in the mid 90s, which that's not crazy. I've certainly seen higher with people on low carb and carnivore diets, right? But it bothered me. Like that's not ideal. And so I took my carb intake up to about 250, 300, really didn't adjust anything else, didn't change fat. I hadn't been fasting already for about 6 months at this point. No more fasted workouts. So nothing really changed except maybe going up from 100 to 150 grams of carbs to 250, 300 grams of carbs. And after several months, like probably 10 months of doing that, blood work showed my fasting blood glucose had come back. It was at 79. My fasting insulin had never really changed. It's been around 3 most of the time. So it's usually like 2.9, 3, 3.1, right in there. Had a couple a little lower at some point back, but thyroid had corrected. TSH was back low. Thyroid looked great. Wasn't feeling better. Wasn't run down. Gaining strength. And I thought, this is okay. So this was a big test. Like, is this the right move? And it gave me much more confidence in moving forward. And I, at that point, digging in, listening to people that are sort of kind of correcting this, who have been through the same thing, use some of the people as well, that just really helping me work through the science of this. About 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to take it up another notch, so I took my carbs up, but pulled the fat back in my own kind of experiment. So took carbs up to closer to 350, 400 plus, pulled the fat back a little bit, depending on the day, sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. And I felt so much better, like sleep markers improved. My HRV went up. I had a string of 10 days in a row where my heart rate stayed below 50. And normally it's like touchdown, maybe a little below 50 and then go up in the mid 50s. And so all of a sudden everything was feeling better, healing better. And again, getting more reps in out of my workouts, feeling like that kind of that pump, that rehydrated muscle. And when I finally did the blood work after this, like about 4 months of this, during this time, I also dropped, according to the bioimpedance, about 6 pounds of fat by increasing the carbs and lowering the fat. I dropped 6 pounds of fat. It said my muscle went up maybe 0.8. I'm sure that was the hydration, the glycogen.
Sure.
And that was like 6 pounds in a 7-week period. But when I got the final blood work, once again, fasting glucose at 81, fasting insulin 2.6. My A1C was 5.3, which is the one I was concerned about most. Like, well, what am I going to see? Which direction is this going to go with this extra carb intake? And that was, to me, that was kind of the clincher. Is I can go to that level and adjust this. My weight, my fat comes down. My blood markers look better. I feel better. And I just, and I had a better understanding of why at this point, after digging into research, and seeing things I hadn't seen before, and understanding where diabetes and insulin resistance really comes from and what stimulates it. It was like it turned everything I thought I knew prior to this experiment on its head. Everything I thought I knew through low carb, through everything I was doing, helping people for 20 plus years, it was upside down. And this was like the final like exclamation point on, yeah, this is the right direction. you were so wrong. So long-winded way of saying I spent the first 20 plus years saying the wrong thing, preaching the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. And now I'm at a point in the last, 3 years of this where I'm really like, it's a completely different perspective on health, metabolic health, on how we're supposed to eat, on what corrects disease, everything I've been searching for the last 35, really since the mid 90s. So 30 years, I suddenly like it made sense.
Mhm.
And it was exciting and humbling all at the same time.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah, it's I've kind of gotten to the point where I feel like the whole low carb framework of understanding nutrition and your metabolism and all of that, it's in my mind very similar to the calories in, calories out, eat more or eat less, exercise more
Mm-hmm.
mentality, where it makes sense. Like, and there's a nugget of truth there. But as soon as you start digging just a little bit deeper into the biology,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that nugget of truth is actually detrimental. Like you don't you understand it less if you lean on that little nugget of truth. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very similar to you in where I've been in the low carb world and just really truly believing this whole framework for 20 years, very similar to you. In the early 2000s I went on the Atkins diet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, for me, well, a lot of people, it seems like they think that you can just find the truth, you find the science, find the truth, and then just do it. And what I've found in my 20 plus years of dieting and trying to be a healthy human being is that you have to go along you have to go with your experience,
Yeah.
because you can find these really smart low carb doctors that make all the sense in the world. I mean, we both
Yeah.
were there. Like, yeah, of course that makes sense. Of course, insulin is the fat storing hormone, and eating less carbs, eating less sugar. Of course, that's going to make your blood sugar go down. And we went with that, and it wasn't until our experience changed
Yeah.
that our minds got opened to maybe looking at a different perspective. And so it's like, I think, because I get all these comments where people saying all of these low carb truths, uh and
Oh,
you
it's folklore.
and they'll say it to me as if it should be convincing, but when
Right.
I'm sitting here with my own personal experience of the opposite of what they're saying, I'm like, it doesn't have any impact. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it is
100%.
kind of, it's like a mind warp, and I've been in it, and for the last 2 years, very similar to your timeline, where it was very humbling, and being on YouTube, I didn't want to come out and say
I was wrong.
I'm fruit, and like, I don't think
Yeah.
that fruit juice is necessarily unhealthy anymore. Like, it was kind of a
Yeah.
wild transition. Let's say hi to a few people in the comments here.
Sure. Sure.
And then we can get into some more stuff. Devin says that Jay Feldman is awesome. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
About a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I first started, kind of getting into the whole bioenergetic world and thinking about carbs as something maybe beneficial, I listened to Jay and Mike, Jay Feldman and Mike Fave, and the Energy Balance podcast, and I just would listen to episode after episode after episode. And I told Jay in the interview with him that I got to the point where it was like that scene in The Matrix when Neo unplugs and he says, "I know Kung Fu."
Yeah, exactly. That's so good. What a great analogy.
I felt like that's what I went through. It's just like I couldn't, I had to listen to all of this, and not that I absorbed all of it and know all of the stuff that they know. Their brains are on a different level than mine, but just like my whole framework shifted from listening to those guys.
100%. It's like testing, click, and when something clicks, and it was that final blood work for me after that experiment that did it, where I'm like, that's where I know Kung Fu. That's exactly like it was all of this. It was shifting, and all of a sudden I was dead solid, like convinced.
Yeah.
And confident in what I was seeing, because at first you see it and you're like, can I believe this? Can I trust this? Can I trust my own experience? Can I trust my eyes or what I'm comprehending here. And then there's a moment where you're like, oh, it just clicks, and you
Yeah.
don't have to know it all, but you know enough. You're confident. What you're seeing is like, oh, I can run with this,
Yeah.
and that's it for sure.
All right. Lillian commented, I'm coming from Carnivore, started reintroducing soluble fiber carbs in August, decided to try Jay Feldman's energy balance paradigm starting last week. Awesome. Yeah. I haven't done his program, but his stuff is so solid. I just,
Yeah.
anyone wanting to, to make the transition, because it's not an easy transition. If you've been keto or carnivore for a long time, there's a lot of like physical stuff as well as mental stuff that has to be worked through. And so having someone to like guide you through that, I think is a
Yeah.
great choice.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jen is here. I know you interviewed her recently.
Hi, Jen.
Jen's my girl. Let's see. Chris says carbs are king. Hello from New York. Oh, this is the fabulous Chris. He has a YouTube channel, The Fabulous Spotty, I think. He's amazing, but he's a high carb guy for sure.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Anne says, went from keto to mostly carnivore over the last 4 years, and my arteries went downhill. Had a heart attack in June and needed 2 stents. Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Wow.
Yikes. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear. Oh, you have another comment down here. I was going to say, curious to hear what what changes you're making. Started including veg and some fruit and olive oil and psyllium husk. Total cholesterol dropped from 12 to 3.7. I feel like I got swept into trusting too much instead of doing more research. Yeah, and I don't want to paint the picture that any of these low carb doctors or influencers are malicious in any way. Like because I was a low carb influencer. You were a low carb author. It's like,
Oh, I know most of the doctors you might think of, and I'm friends with them, and I can sit there and have a conversation with them, and or even argue with them, even disagree with them, and we're still buddies. There's a couple of them when I'm making the film. There was one that he's like looked at me, and in between shots, we were like back and forth disagreeing with each other, but afterwards it was we're it's okay to have, it's healthy to have friendly discourse, disagreements, conversations. That's how we move forward. That's how we learn. It's when we shut down the conversation, or as you mentioned, with what's been happening a lot, is we invalidate people's experience or their personal experience by saying you didn't do it right. You didn't keto right. You didn't carnivore right. Too much fasting, not enough fat, too much fat. All of these things to help qualify in their minds that this person somehow did it wrong, when really they were just doing it to the best variety of people who were all doing it in all the different ways, having the same negative symptoms with blood sugar, with thyroid, with even fat gain, with losing their hair falling out because of the thyroid issues. That's probably been the biggest issue that I've been trying to convey, is that I'm not my issue with certain people in the community is that they're not addressing this. They're not addressing this and allowing people to speak, because when people say these things, right? And then I added fruit in and everything shifted, or things felt better, and then they get attacked. They get attacked on these threads, they get attacked in these groups, and there's no leadership addressing the actual problems in a productive way, or saying, oh, here's what we found. There's no one dealing with this. And I think it's because there isn't a good answer other than add some carbs in, because there's a lot of the basically invalidating people's experiences. And that's never okay. It's never okay.
Yeah.
And so that's if I get upset about anything, it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there is, with the hardcorest of the carnivores, and even people who aren't at that level of being hardcore carnivore, there's been this kind of understanding for the last few years at carnivore's peak that carnivore is the healthiest way for people to live.
Yeah.
And people kind of have latched onto that. And even if they decide not to be fully carnivore, there's this idea that, oh, if I really was, all the way dedicated, and I fall into this category myself, like all these things I'm saying, I apply to me as well. I thought if I, wanted to be the absolute healthiest, I should go 100% carnivore. But I enjoy food. I enjoy, having variety. So I'm healthy enough. Like I have enough health that I'm able to enjoy some of these bad foods along with my, healthy meat. And so when someone comes along and says, I am healthier with plants, it's not just oh, we're all different and everyone can, feel better on different things. You have to divorce this idea that carnivore is the appropriate diet for all humans. And people are not ready to do that when they've, put their put their hope and trust,
So wait, you're saying that you're still carb addicted? Is that what you're telling me? You're still carb
Yes.
addicted?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am very much carb addicted. My name is Neely. Hi.
And I have a carb addiction.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm sure that is like one of the best zingers that we get in our comments from people saying, "You just doing anything to justify that carb addiction, aren't you?" I actually got one of those comments just this morning. So.
Oh, I saw one on one of my, a comment like that regarding, it was pointed at somebody else, but it might as well have included all of us.
Yeah.
But which is silly. I mean, it's like, ask your liver how it feels about your carb addiction, because it's working really hard.
Yeah.
One of the other things with the metrics that came up, someone mentioned their cholesterol. My cholesterol dropped. It dropped when I added the carbs initially. And not that I was worried about it, but I typipally had fairly high LDL and total cholesterol. And when I added the carbs initially, it dropped a good 20%. This last move, when I increased it to the 400, my doc was asked, "What did you do? Your ApoB has dropped 30% since last year. I've never seen anyone do that without medication." I said, "It's just diet. It was a stress response. That's why it was high. So now it's not stressed." And he said, my liver had never looked quieter. I had a lot of people concerned, messaging me, "Oh, your liver is going to freak out. It's going to work. You're going to have fatty liver." My liver numbers have never been this low. Same doctor looking at me for the last 6 years. He said, "Your liver has never been this quiet in all of our blood work." And so it's really happy not to be cranking out glucose all the time at such a high level to keep up with me. And I think that's where this kind of this worship of gluconeogenesis as being the best source of your glucose is completely in the face of science and biology and what studies actually show us. It is not. That's a backup mechanism in a catabolic state, which is not ideal. It's very stressful, and it's a state that diabetics are in. And people with fatty liver disease are in. Anyone with severe insulin resistance has very elevated gluconeogenesis. So why, in the effort to fix that, would we double down with a similar stimulus from our diet? Why would we try to elevate gluconeogenesis even more by following a diet that relies on it solely for glucose?
Right.
And it's a backwards way of looking at the root cause of the disease. And I was guilty of it, for sure.
Same.
100%. Yeah. But it's just, it really is like, it's a framework shift. And that's why when we're saying these things to other people and we are literally speaking different languages.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that, I think the process that we both went through in shifting our mindset was kind of like learning a new language. Where we had to learn the vocabulary, we had to learn the grammar, and we're still not, I mean, we're probably still not fluent in it, but we're taking the steps.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Well, and now when I see it, it's like, oh, the patterns make so much sense, and why the low carb people, my clients, for instance, would go certain far and then they would stall, or things would get stuck, or they couldn't adhere to it, or they weren't, it was like, because there is like you said, the element of truth, or there's an element of benefit, of short-term benefit, which I think in looking at it, it probably helps clear the gut a little bit. It helps because if you go on one of these diets, you usually clear out the processed food for the most part, unless you're a hardcore like keto snack person and you're doing all the keto processed foods with it. But if you clear out the processed food, you get whole food. That is a change. That's a beneficial change, despite the fact that you're still starving your body of glucose and relying on heavy fat oxidation. But it cleans up the gut and lowers some inflammation in the gut. And I think that's where a lot of the relief comes in with people who go through, especially with a carnivore elimination diet. They have cleared up maybe some endotoxin or some imbalance, some dysbiosis in the gut. And now they have, that inflammation has been taken care of. And that inflammation can cause insulin resistance. It can cause many of the issues people have with their brain, cravings. And at some point, that benefit doesn't outweigh how your body adapts to it. And the adaptation that people say, oh, you just have to adapt to it. No, I don't want to. My adaptation was the high cortisol, the high stress, the high gluconeogenesis, the elevated blood sugar, the thyroid dysregulation. Those are adaptations to a low carb diet. Or no carb diet. So the adaptations are the worst part. And that's when those symptoms start kicking in. They begin outweighing those initial benefits. And I think that's where there's a lot of confusion, because those early benefits tend to win people over the gate.
Yeah. And I love how Jay always puts out there that there are benefits. It's not just saying that there is no positive to low carb or carnivore, because like you said, you can really, I think it reveals a lot as far as like gut stuff. And other things, because it does give your body that break. If your gut is not handling and digesting food well, if you have, leaky gut or SIBO or any other dysbiosis, and, you just stop feeding your body those things that, cause the symptoms,
Right.
you get a break, your body gets a break that maybe it hasn't had for a really long time, and it can be extremely helpful. And I experienced that myself. But what I found was that it didn't actually heal the underlying gut issues. Like, my gut was in probably the worst state it ever was at the end of my keto carnivore journey, when I started adding carbs back. And adding carbs back ended up being a big piece of healing my gut. And so even though, you can get a lot of symptom relief and, give your body that break, I don't see the carnivore diet being as healing as people make it out to be.
Correct.
Because you have to stay on it in order to keep the results.
Right.
Yeah.
And in order to keep the negative symptoms at bay that you originally were dealing with, you have to stay on it, which has more implications, more negative implications than the symptoms there's a better way. There's a better way to relieve those symptoms and improve your metabolic health at the same time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with blood sugar. Yes, there is some truth to, if you
100%.
don't eat carbs, you're not going to have as high a blood sugar as if you eat carbs with, the metabolic difficulties that you have. But just not eating carbs, I personally don't think is healing the problem
at all. No, I think it's actually more of an issue with metabolic, when it comes to metabolic health and insulin resistance, that low carb is the opposite of the direction you want to go. You might be attacking an initial symptom, but it's deceptive. It's the best analogy I've heard is, it's like trying to fix a clogged sink by not turning on the faucet. Okay, you're just not going to see the problem, because you're not going to have the water trying to flow through the clogged sink, but you still haven't fixed the clog.
Yes.
And you haven't fixed the sink.
Yes.
So you're just attacking a symptom. It's yet another symptom The high insulin and high blood sugar is just another symptom of a underlying problem that's further upstream. Until we address that, you're not really healed.
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, all of this fear over blood sugar going up immediately after a meal, like, because it goes up, it comes down, and this glycation, and that's not how it works, guys. And the fact that it comes down an hour later, that's healthy. Having it elevated like many of these people have now after years of this carnivore, even some people 6 months, where they're sitting at 110 or 120 fasting, and maybe through much of the day, there's your health risk. That's sort of time on the curve. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of examples of people who have been strict carnivore for a long time. And, everyone looks up to those people, and that's amazing that they found something that works for them. But I think there's a lot of people who struggle to do it consistently. And when you put yourself in that state of having that higher blood sugar from the stress response, then those times when you do have that cheat meal, or, it's Thanksgiving or it's your birthday, and you do have the birthday cake, your blood sugar does spike super high. And I experienced this in my journey. And I just remember being so devastated, thinking how broken my body was, that I can't even have any carbs. And I need to just be even stricter and stricter in this, keto.
Carnivore harder.
Well, yeah, I've told this story before, but there was a time when I was really focusing on my blood sugar, and I was like, had this idea that if I could just get my blood sugar lower, that would fix, all the problems. And I was being super strict with it. I was reducing protein because, protein turns into sugar in your body. This was, back in like 2011 or something like that. And I obviously, I was under eating. I was not having enough protein. I was obviously not having enough carbs, and I was so hungry. And I remember one night I was like, I'm going to splurge and have butternut squash. I was like, because I felt so deprived, and I'm like, I'm just going to have butternut squash. And I had the butternut squash, and I tested my blood sugar, and it was like spiked up to like 180 or something. And I was just like, I can't even eat butternut squash. And it just made so much sense to me at the time that the problem was me. The problem was my body. I did not understand that the way I was eating was the direct cause of that blood sugar spike. It was not the butternut squash. That was only the trigger.
Right.
And so, but how many years did it take for me to understand that? Because it just made sense that the problem was me at that time. And I don't fault anybody for, having these, going with this system, because it makes sense. And it's hard to get past that.
Yeah. I don't have an issue. I have no desire to have an issue with people unless they come at me first, but in which case I will, or they come after somebody for sharing their experiences. Then they're going to, in my comments, then I'm going to come after them.
Yeah.
But I want to address ideas like concepts, ideologies, thought, the misapplied concepts, and not people. But you always have people coming into your thread or coming into your conversation. Well, what about what so-and-so says? What about what this person? It's like, bring the idea, bring the concept. Let's discuss the concept. I'm not going to discuss what someone else says who's not here. You're not going to speak for them. I don't want to speak for them. I'm not attacking them. It's not about them or their name or anything else or what they say. We're talking about how the human body works. Bring that to me. Don't name drop, because I don't want to. I'm not here to talk bad about somebody else, or what they think. I'm not here to attack people. It's about the concept. It's the ideas, because we're all trying to get there. We're all on a journey, and they're there where they are in their journey, as I was where I was in mine, and I'm where I am now. only through conversations and through digging deeper and through having an open mind, not through someone sticking their finger in my face and saying,
Mm.
you know, attacking me personally. And so I that's where it's unfortunately many of these conversations go, where there's the name dropping, there's the use of an idea in someone else's name, and that person may not even realize the depth of the concept that they're discussing.
Mm.
And so I think that's where we have to be careful, and or I try to be careful, because I have friendships with these people, and I stand next to them and talk to them, and you know, I've interviewed them sometimes, or they've interviewed me, and it's not personal. It's like we all are moving forward. We're all trying to move forward, and I do have that empathy because as you have said, you've been there, you've
Yeah.
been there,
Yeah.
and we gotta all allow each other to be on our own place in our journey, and when we get to that point, because as you said, I don't think it's malicious. I think
Yeah.
it's just um, it has to, for some of us, it has to get really bad. For me, it had to get bad enough for me to like be at the end of my, like, what is going on, for
Mm.
me to dig in. I actually listened to some of Jay and Mike's podcast like 2.5 years ago. And when I first heard them, like, oh, I hear something, there's something here, there's something to this, but I'm not quite sure. That I think they're a little overemphasizing that stress
Mm.
thing.
Mhm.
And then and because I was at the beginning phase of confronting all these problems. And then as I got a little further in it and started recognizing patterns and started saying, okay, oh, I see what's happening here, as I added things in. And then I come back to them, to some of their episodes. I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense now, because of what I'd experienced and what I understood just a year later.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's all of a sudden, oh, I see the patterns now. Oh, this resonates. I get it. And so it's really, we're all on a timeline of hopefully a discovery and learning and staying curious.
Mhm.
And that's where our head needs to be. As soon as you get locked in and we start making strategies, which is what I'm seeing, where they're devaluating people's experience, we start making the strategy more important than the desired outcome of people's health, we're in a bad place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying really hard to not, make the same mistakes again, because, I have now gone through a lot of years of my life with this framework that now I'm like, wow, I wish I had known, and if I had known, I wish I would have acted differently or said different things.
Right.
I'm trying to take that into this new period where I don't think I have it all figured out. I mean, I feel like I'm working with a different framework, and I'm like experimenting, seeing how it goes, but I'm not at the place of saying I know 100% for sure that this is the perfect diet and I'm never going to get cancer and I'm never going to get heart disease. It's like no one knows that, and so trying to kind
Right.
of bring that humility along with me and not do the same things to the
Correct.
low carb world that, either they're doing to me or that the standard American diet people did to the low carb people. Because when people first started going low carb, they're like, your cholesterol is going to go high. You're going to get colon cancer from all that meat. And we all know that that's saturated fat is bad for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter how good you feel now, and doesn't matter that you're losing weight now. Think about long term, this bad thing is going to happen. And as soon as, I start going high carb, then the low carb people are coming at me saying, well, you might feel good now and you might lose weight now, but just wait until you have diabetes, and just wait until, sugar feeds cancer. So you're going to, and it's exactly the same thing that was done to the low carb community,
Right.
back. And it's like, well, can we try to do better here?
Right. It's like if you go, and you would see the same thing if you went to a vegan community, a vegan thread, vegan group, and someone says, you know what, I had meat last night. I feel so much better. Have you guys even tried it? Was the last time you ate some meat? My brain just turned on. And you would see the knives come out and attack that person. They'll even cancel. So there's people who are well known, like the influencers, they will completely try to cancel them and just rip them apart and troll their threads and everything else. So it's very, it's similar, it's parallel
It
in the
really is.
response, because again, we're making the danger is making a strategy more important than the desired outcome. And
Mm,
that's what it comes back to. If when the desired outcome is health, then the strategy should always be evolving and improving and moving forward and getting better, because we're learning, we're getting closer to
mm,
more truth, and truth keeps revealing itself as we stay curious and move forward. When
yeah.
we say we've got it figured out, this is it, locked in, there's no more room for truth to be revealed.
Mm,
And there's no, because you're not looking for it and you
yeah.
don't think you need it. And anything that confronts that is a threat.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
So you're not going to learn. You're not going to be open. You're not going to see what could be right in front of you. Again, been there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always listened to a somewhat wide variety of different voices. It's always easy to listen to the people you really like and you tend to agree with, but I've always tried to listen to other voices, and there's been certain vegan people that I've followed for years, and I always, it's like there's something, like, obviously I wasn't ready to go vegan or anything like that, but I was like, there's some nugget of truth in there that we're missing. And I feel like listening to Jay and Mike and the bioenergetic framework really made a lot of things click, where I see stuff from the vegan world, kind of their understanding of insulin and
Mhm,
fat affecting insulin resistance and all those kind of things. And also like the importance of animal foods and the importance of healthy fat and different things, like it all kind of comes together. And so when we, get into a framework where we think this is the truth, we found it, and we don't open ourselves up to listening to other voices, it's like we are reducing the amount of knowledge we can have. Uh,
mhm.
and it's just, and that's what I, was guilty of in the keto carnivore thing, where I remember people talking about how silly it is that vegans say that fat causes you to be insulin resistant. Oh, that's so funny. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Let's all laugh at the stupid vegans. And now looking back on that, I'm like, oh man, like
They had it right.
we could have had such a more robust
Yeah.
amount of information and understanding of this whole process if we had just, listen to all these voices. Not that any individual one has all of the truth necessarily, but it's
No.
like they do have they're not just stupid.
Well, no, there's actually studies demonstrating this over and over and over and over and over again. But if we don't believe it, we ignore those and we discount
Yes.
those studies, even though they're published research showing that excessive fat oxidation leads to, um, to insulin resistance, to the blockage of glucose and backup of glucose. If you don't mind, I think I heard you say something once, because you and I really haven't talked much. We've chatted like DMs, but that's
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
Did I hear you say you eat 400 grams of carbs a day? Have I ever seen that in one of your videos?
I have gone up, so it varies from day to day. I
Sure.
don't stay to anything super strict as far as macro counting, but it goes up as high as 500 grams of carbs per day, somewhere between 3 and 5 typically. And
That's amazing. That's
when
great.
doing that, I keep my fat low. Like, I
Right, like below 40 grams or so, probably?
yes, yeah, usually below 30 grams.
Okay.
And then my protein's usually around 100-ish. So, that's kind of where, so we haven't really gotten into my, story, my transition story,
Mhm.
yet, but maybe I could do that just a little bit, kind
Sure.
of share just, over the past few years from keto, because I have a whole long diet history from all the way back. And having lots of babies in there, so that just complicates everything. And but
Definitely.
anyways, I was keto carnivore for about 5 years, and that was only I've been keto carnivore or keto many different times, but the last time was about 5 years. And I did a stint of carnivore in there for 3 months, and I it's kind of complicated. I got an offer to write a cookbook while I was carnivore, but not a carnivore cookbook. And so I
Mm.
was like, oh man, I know that carnivore is the best diet and I should stay on it, but I really want to write this cookbook, for my for my career and everything. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to put carnivore aside and I'm going to write this cookbook. And it was a healthy cookbook, whatever that means, but it
Yeah.
had, they wanted it to have grains and to have fruits and vegetables and beans and things like that. And so I went from being carnivore for 3 months directly into testing recipes and eating a variety of healthy foods again. And my experience with that was immediately when I started eating other foods off of carnivore, I had night terrors.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was a really wild experience, and it was, like, the worst dreams for, like, a week straight, the worst dreams that I've ever had, and, like, this anxiety it was, like, clearly there was some really deep anxiety in me that was being triggered by these other foods. Now that is a really powerful message to me that these foods are bad. And
Right.
so that just confirmed even more that I needed to be, this super strict carnivore. And so I went through about a year process of writing this
Mm.
cookbook. And like the whole time I'm like, I'm going to get through this. And then I'm going right back to carnivore. And after that, I never could fully get back 100% carnivore. And I felt like, I'm just a failure and I'm
Mm.
not dedicated enough and all of that. And I ended up falling into like this ketovore um, diet where I had some carbs, but my gut health just kept getting worse and worse. And looking back on it, I truly believe that my gut health was in a really rough place when I did carnivore, which is why I got some relief from certain things when I went carnivore. And then when I added the stuff back, my gut just, was having so many issues, and that's what caused, the night terrors and stuff like that. Um, so now
Wow.
looking back on it, I see it in such a different lens,
Mhm.
where it wasn't the carbs that were the problem because I'm eating all of those now and I'm not having that anxiety. Like I'm not having those mental problems that I had back then. Yeah, I think it was my gut health was in a really rough place. And
Mm.
so through this whole ketovore, 4 or 5 years ketovore, I I had to keep narrowing down my diet more and more in order to not have digestive issues. And I got to the point where I was pretty close to carnivore again. And I would just, yeah, I was like, if I just keep narrowing and narrowing, it was like this game of what else can I cut out, and what is that going to be the magic piece that, makes
Right.
me healthy again. And I just had in my mind that this is the healthiest way to live, and, I just need to keep getting stricter and stricter and just do it better. And, I ended up going and getting some blood work done, which I hadn't gotten done for a long time because I was on, the perfect healthy diet, so obviously everything's gonna be fine, so why would I waste my money going to get blood work? But I finally did, and I found a lot of really concerning things in my blood work. The main one was my ferritin was extremely low. And I was like, this doesn't make sense because I am eating meat and red meat 3 times a day, most days.
Mm.
There is no reason that my ferritin should be, in single digits. And like things like my B12 was low, like B12, we know we're getting plenty of B12 from
Right.
our meat. And there's just so many different things. And that just sent me on a whole journey. But that was the first thing that I was like, I'm eating this really healthy diet. And I was convincing myself that I felt good. And as soon as I saw on the paper all of the problems going on in my body, it was like I allowed myself to recognize how bad I actually did feel.
Wow.
And so I went down the journey of trying to deal with my iron deficiency. I did that by trying to deal with SIBO, which I thought, might be a root cause. And there's a whole journey in there. Um, but that was the key for me to be like, okay, I need to open my mind up a little bit more. I need to search a little bit harder, not in this box, this keto carnivore box. And so it's been a really long journey since then. And I went through a bunch of SIBO healing protocol, and that like transformed my gut health to the point where, I realized that I could all of a sudden eat anything I wanted to eat it again. And so it's like I was able to rebuild my diet from scratch, where I was like, I'm not constrained by what I can eat in order to feel human. I can choose to eat whatever, like what diet do I even want to eat? What do I actually believe in, and how do I want to build this? And so I worked through that, had some other health issues that I had to work through, but I decided to add back in carbs along with the help of a coach. And he helped me get up to about 100 grams of carbs, which was really helpful because when you're coming from that mindset and from, that place where you're in that, you have those survival hormones
Mhm.
going on, the stress hormones, it's really hard to just go slowly and be meticulous and, do things carefully and well. And so having a coach getting me to that point of 100 grams of carbs was really helpful. And then slowly from there, I started increasing. That's when I started listening to Jay and Mike. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't think carbs are the enemy. I don't think I need to stay 100 grams or less for the rest of my life. And so I slowly started adding over another year, getting up to around 200 grams of carbs. And same as you, I didn't do a whole lot to the rest of my macros. I didn't lower fat at that point. I probably was eating a little less just because I was eating more
Right.
carbs. And so just naturally eating a little less fat, but still I was around, 80 to 100 grams of fat per day. And I kept listening to Jay and Mike talk about, where macros should land, and they were kind of recommending less, for a woman my size and my age, less fat. And it was really hard to wrap my mind around going lower fat because of, my history of
Right.
fat is great and we need it. And it's almost like the free food. You could eat as much butter
Right.
as you want. So it felt really restrictive to me to even think about reducing the fat. And I was talking to Jen and some of my other gal friends about how uh, people talk about being carb addicted, and
Oh,
put that on us, but the fat addiction piece I think is almost equally as real. And so I really felt that struggle of like, I just because I've been dieting for 20 years, and it was just kind of like, I can't feel restricted. Like I'm already breaking out of this, I'm not restricting carbs anymore. I don't want to go into, restricting
yeah.
anything. And so I
Got it.
kind of had to take a break. And that's when the sugar diet hit the internet.
Right.
And that was back in like May
Yeah.
ish. And that got me thinking, and I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And I was like, I mean,
Interesting.
it's it's the craziest thing, especially coming from the keto carnivore mindset. Like the idea of going to the sugar is just wild. And so, but I was like, this kind of makes sense because you do reduce the fat so severely. Now,
Mm.
I wasn't excited about, eating Sour Patch Kids and gummy bears. I mean, that's exciting in a way, but I'm like, I'm not ready to do that. But I was like, I bet I could do, something fruitarian like,
Yes.
eating fruit, keeping it low fat. And so I decided to experiment with that. And I did it for 12 days where I was eating, fruit during the day. And then I'd have one meal that had some starch and some protein. And that was it. I did that for 12 days. I lost 6 pounds, like, the weight just started flying
Well,
off. And I was like, "This is insane." And I the weight loss didn't continue, like, I think there was something about the sugar diet that similar to keto where you lose a bunch of weight initially, and then I found for me, it wasn't something that I could just keep doing and keep losing the weight that
mm.
quickly. But the weight did stay off, the 6 pounds that I lost.
Mhm.
So I feel like the sugar diet was the catalyst for me to be able to reduce my fat intake. And I found that doing that sugar diet, it made it extremely easy for me now to reduce my fat intake, and to the point where I don't miss it as much as I thought I would. And when I do have a higher fat meal, which I do occasionally, with life,
Sure.
it's so much more satiating, which is
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of interesting, where I'll eat a high fat meal, and if I were on keto and I ate a regular meal that had carbs and fat in it, it would be like, the trigger to just eat more and more and more. When I'm high carb, low fat, and I have a regular meal, I get satiated so fast, and I don't have that same kind of reaction. So
Sure.
that's been really interesting. Um, so so since the sugar diet, it kind of opened up this world to me of, oh, I can eat high carb, low fat. Like I didn't feel like I could do the fat thing before, and then I was like, oh, actually this feels really good. And so I basically I keep my fat to, around that 30 grams per day. I keep my protein somewhere around 100. I've kind of played with doing less and doing more, and I think around 100 is fine. And then I just eat carbs to satiety after
Mhm.
that. And I did have to get over a few like mental things, like uh I it was like I couldn't eat more than one piece of fruit in a meal. Like people just don't do that. Like it's bad enough that I'm eating a piece of fruit in the meal, but to eat like two pieces of fruit in a meal, like you can't do that. And so I had to get over a few of those mental blocks like that.
I
Um,
get it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I just kind of eat to satiety. And I find that my carbs are usually 300 to 400.
Mhm.
Occasionally they're higher, probably occasionally they're lower. I don't count every day. And then as far as like weight loss, I do have weight to lose that I, hope to lose at some point. But like I said, I have been dieting for 20 years. I've spent a lot of time getting out of this restriction mindset. And there may come a time where I'm like, I'm ready to do a cut and I'm ready to lose this weight. But for now, like I'm enjoying eating real food, whole food, to
Yeah,
satiety, not having cravings, not having food noise. I'm like, I'm just gonna play this out as long as I can and kind of see what my body does.
sure.
And we'll get wherever we get. And I have, listening to Jay and Mike and other bioenergetic people, I really um think about weight loss a lot differently. And I think about how stressful weight loss, like um, the starvation weight loss is. And I'm just like, I'm so much more careful. Like it used to be, oh yeah, we'll try a sardine fast. We'll try a this, we'll try a
Right.
that. We'll fast for this long, like sure, no big deal. I really have changed my perspective to think of these things as I don't know, dangerous is not the right word, but I'm a lot
Detrimental.
more careful.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm a lot more careful with what I just do because I recognize how quickly you can have those stress responses from it. So anyways, that's
yeah,
kind of an overview and where I'm at right now. Just enjoying the carbs. Oh my gosh, it's
yeah.
fantastic because I am an addict after all. So
Well, and I was talking to another coach who her name's Michelle, and she's pretty prominent on social media. And I'd interviewed her 3 years ago on my podcast, and she's definitely on the keto side, even though she's an ultra runner. And so we were having a very open conversation. I said, "Look, if I put you on a vegan diet for 4 weeks, do you think you'd be craving animal food?" Well, yeah, of course. So that would that be a meat and protein addiction, or would that be a fat addiction? Or is it your body telling you that you're missing some very vital nutrients and you should be eating them? And she's like, okay. So and not that she disagreed with me at all, or that was because she puts carbs in her diet for her runs, but it was just let's let's flip the script on this whole carb addiction, accusation and just this mindset of like it's it's your body telling you
Mhm.
it needs something. And when you eat a little bit, because there's people who say, if I eat a little broccoli, I want to dive into XYZ. It takes me to chips and ice cream. And I'm like, well,
Yes.
those aren't carbs.
Yeah.
Chips and ice cream, I could easily call those fats. Donuts are a fat as much as they are a carb.
Yep.
Those aren't food. And by lumping those processed foods in with things like fruit and rice and sweet potatoes, that's ignorant. That's lazy.
Yeah.
And so those are not good. Good luck binging on an apple. How many apples are you going to eat in a binge?
Yeah.
Maybe 2.5. Good luck binging on rice, fruit, and sweet potatoes. How much you will hit satiety. You will hit satiety. You will hit a point where you're like, I don't want it anymore. When you did that sugar diet, which I played with that too with the fruit, you
Mhm.
hit a point where you don't want anything more than sweet.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm done with sweet. And you're
Yeah.
literally making yourself eat sometimes because you know you need the calories and you
Yep.
want to work out and you have the energy, but you don't want it because you're craving meat and fat and salt,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so there is a satiety to these things. And when you're eating real food, carbohydrates, they satisfy your need for those carbohydrates to shut down your liver so you're not dependent on making your own glucose. And then you're satisfied. There is a satiety to it. The
Yeah.
problem with satiety is coming from the ultra processed foods triggering all sorts of feeding mechanisms and the chemicals and the processed oils and all the problems with those foods are related to those foods. We don't need to lump those foods that people keep calling carbs onto actual real food. That's lazy thinking,
Mm.
and it's really ignorant. It doesn't make sense in light of history. We don't really need a science lesson for that. All we have to do is look back when we all ate all of those foods for the last 10,000 years, cultivated them with no metabolic disease, and the current indigenous tribes out there in Asia and South America and Pacific Islands who haven't started following an industrial diet yet. They're still eating their indigenous diet that is sometimes 60 to 85%
Mm.
carbohydrate with
Yeah.
no evidence of metabolic disease. They're extremely healthy.
Yeah.
They're not all eating the same things. It's different for each geographic region. It's not a magic food.
Yep.
It's just that there's no processed food.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's really a history lesson. It's a cultural lesson. Let's look at this group and this group and this group and realize no metabolic disease.
Mm.
They're eating their natural diet, lots of carbs, no
Yes.
disease. It's not hard. We don't need anthropology to say, oh, if we go back 2 million years, our primary diet was yada yada through isotope studies of this. And like you're speculating,
Yeah.
one, on something that happened prehistoric when we have history. Two, you're assuming that because even if that's true, and those people had to eat this way, that was ideal.
Right.
And
Yes.
that was optimal. Just because they ate that way doesn't mean it's ideal. It was ideal for them, and it certainly doesn't mean it's ideal for us.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, to me, optimal is when I feel better, my numbers look good, and I'm performing better, I'm sleeping better, and that has come through an abundance of, one, food
Mhm.
in general, not under eating, and two, where carbohydrates are my primary source of fuel.
Mhm.
And then when the science backs it up. The science, so that's
Yeah.
where we can learn a lot from, like you said, the vegans and the vegetarians, because there's an element of
There's something. Not everything, but
well,
something.
we're all looking at science from our own
Yes.
perspective, and I kind of look at it this way: we're all trying to solve a puzzle, but we have a different perspective of where we're looking at this puzzle, and we all start putting different pieces together in different order. You give every 100 people a puzzle, they're going to put those pieces together in different order. Some people might follow a certain pattern where they like to put the outside together, and some like to start from the inside, or they start with a bright color and they build out. But we're all putting together a puzzle which then reveals truth. Sometimes people put together part of their puzzle like, oh, I got it figured out. I know what that's going to look like now.
Yes.
I'll just stop here because I got it figured out. I'm going to go tell everybody what this puzzle is about. And then some people continue to work on their puzzle little by little while saying, hey, it looks like this, but I'm going to keep working on it. Oh,
Mhm.
hey, no, I see this now, and I'm going to work on it a little bit more. We're all trying to fill out the puzzle, and we're coming from different perspectives. We see different parts of it. And at some point, hopefully soon, the puzzle will become more and more clear, but it does become more and more
Yes.
clear over time.
Yeah.
And that's why the whole cultish kind of approach to where we lock into one framework of knowledge without room for movement or for
Mhm.
new thought is so dangerous, because you're assuming you've solved the puzzle when
Mhm.
really you got a little piece of something that's so much more complex than what
Yes.
you can wrap up in your little dogma.
Right.
That
And I think it's important to, like, have the idea that we're never gonna have the whole puzzle. Like, the human body is so complex.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's I think that's where the cults form, is when anyone who says, "I have the whole puzzle." Yeah, I have your health puzzle, and I will sell it to you, which is great. But there's,
And the
like, a
t-shirt.
humility that comes in where you're just like, I understand that I will never have, and, until whatever." But
Right.
I wanted to go back to the cravings thing.
Oh,
When
sure.
you were talking about, like, if I have one bite, it makes me want to eat more. And, people will use that to justify the addiction thing. I'm addicted to it. Um, and they will also, this has been really interesting to me. I've heard carnivores say that because when I eat meat and fat only, I don't crave other things. Therefore, that means that that's the right diet for humans. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense that uh you wouldn't crave the right diet for you. Like, we have these cravings to tell us what it is that we need. Now, obviously, we have the whole processed food world that has hijacked that, but talking only about whole foods,
Mm,
there is something about us eating something and then our body saying, "Eat more of that."
right.
That should tell us that that's something that we should be eating. And I was trying to imagine, I was like, you don't see, um, uh, tigers chowing down on bananas in the jungle and saying, I gotta stop eating these because they're so bad for me."
No.
There's not that. They don't crave things that are not good for them,
Right. They act
and
on
so
instinct. Yeah.
yeah, and so for me, like, I remember I love Dr. Lisa Wiedemann, and I listened to your interview with her, and she's fantastic and has been making some changes and shifts. I remember listening to her maybe a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, talking about going peach picking, I think it was, with her family every year, and how she knew that if she ate one bite, that she would want to eat all the peaches. And that, she was talking about that being a not sober type of response. And I remember thinking, like, that sounds exactly right. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds like your human body is doing what it's supposed to do. You have one bite of fruit and your body's like, yeah, that's a good thing. Eat more of it.
Hmm.
That seems appropriate,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
if you've been in winter for so long and you haven't had fresh fruit like she
Right.
hadn't for 15 years, And
Yeah.
so I just remember thinking, it's like, "Oh, I don't think that she's broken. I don't think that she just has this addiction or anything." I'm like, "That seems like what a normal human body should do." And
Yeah.
so and I feel that now, like, when I eat, I eat enough protein and enough fat that I fill those needs, and I'm not craving a whole bunch more. And then I eat the carbohydrates to fill, my appetite and,
Yeah.
fuel me. And it's like I just feel like I'm eating what I need. Like, there's nothing, I don't have to keep making strategies to stay on track. I don't have to clean up my entire environment so that I'm not tempted. I don't have to avoid going to certain restaurants. Like, all. if you watch, like, I go back and watch a lot of my, keto friends on YouTube and different channels that I've watched before, and it's like strategy after strategy after strategy to force yourself to stick with this
Yeah.
good and perfect thing that you feel like you need to do. And I just feel like I don't even have that anymore. Like, I don't have the trigger, like, if I eat one bite, I'm going to eat the whole whatever it is. It's just gone. And I don't
Mhm.
think that I am a extremely high willpower type of person. Like, I just am able to fight harder. I think it, like, that whole mess in my brain was directly caused by the restriction that I was putting on my body.
Yeah.
And to kind of be free of that
Yeah.
is really a powerful eye opener. Where, because I see a lot of people that are in the same place that I was, so this was me, with so much guilt. Like, I'm not strong enough. I haven't done it hard enough. If I could just fast longer, if I could just fast more, if I could be, just meat, salt, and water, if only, if only, if only. And I'm just like,
That's disordered eating.
for me,
That's an eating disorder.
yeah,
That's an eating disorder. That
yeah,
really is. It's self-punishment. It's punishment. And it's like health has to be hard
mm,
and health. Whereas we go back 120 years. No, everybody was eating whatever they could get. They could
mm,
eat whatever they found, wherever they had available to eat from their environment, and they weren't getting metabolic disease. Their problems were with infectious disease or famine or
yeah,
war. It was not the self-inflicted diseases we have now.
mhm,
They ate whatever they wanted. They ate whatever they had, and they enjoyed it. And they celebrated when they had special things, but it wasn't restrictive by
yeah,
any means. And they weren't never punished themselves for, I shouldn't have eaten that extra apple or even slice of apple pie or that extra
yeah,
scoop of mashed potatoes, or that
yeah,
nobody thought that way. That was not a thing. And there were no obese people.
yeah,
So there was like 1% of the population in 1900 that were
yeah,
obese. And diabetes was like a fraction of a percent in the 1930s. So we didn't have these problems, and we didn't think about food, let alone we didn't think about restricting food. We think about getting enough. We weren't trying to divide macros, were we? Not even in the 50s were we thinking really this way too much.
yeah,
It was like, and yet everybody was very, very thin. They weren't jacked. They weren't all going to the gym. They weren't jogging. They weren't taking
right,
yoga classes. They were doing their life and playing basketball in the driveway and going to the beach. And that was just, they just did life.
mm,
And they weren't, we didn't have this obesity thing going on.
yeah. I think
So
that the
it doesn't have to be
processing is,
hard. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be punishment. It doesn't have to be punishment when you're eating real food. It's not punishment. You don't punish yourself.
right. And that's not to say that if you just start a whole food diet that you will hit your physique goals within 6 months. Like I said,
Oh,
I still
no,
have
no,
weight
no,
to
no.
lose.
No.
And I think people, along with that disordered eating, it comes along with the body image stuff, especially for women,
Mhm.
in my generation, my age group. And so it's like, if I'm not getting those immediate results physically,
Mhm.
then, you know, scrap that, And so that's been
Right.
something that I've kind of had to, like I said, put that aside, be like, weight loss, physique goals, not the most important thing right now. I need to make sure that my body is safe, it's nourished, all my micronutrients are topped off, like I'm fueling, my body is fueled, I have energy, and then, the physique thing, that can be dealt with another day. But a lot of people are not willing to do that, to set that aside as the not most important thing.
Right. And if you will do, that's fine. I mean, I certainly pay attention to that. And that's not, I mean, someone's just made a comment. It's like, you're not employing willpower, but you also said you're not trying to lose weight. And it's like, right. So what I was talking about with people that try to punch themselves. They weren't sick. They weren't trying to reverse a disease because they didn't have disease. They weren't trying to lose weight, and they weren't trying to have 9% body fat with a six-pack abs either. When I wanted to lose that fat, I tracked and I restricted something, but I wasn't in an unhealthy state. I did it because I wanted to do it. I was quite healthy at 13% body fat, but I wanted to see 9. And so I played with it to get to 9.
Yeah.
And then knowing that I would balance out somewhere just above that as I came back away from maybe some of the, but it was an experiment and I enjoyed doing that. I wasn't punishing myself. I was like, let's see what I can do because I like to tinker.
Yes.
There was no punishment. There wasn't like,
Mm.
I am not worthy of calling myself a trainer if I don't have 9% body fat. There was none of that kind of thinking. This was me wanting to play with some macros and some levels to see what I could do and see what's possible and to test this thesis.
Yeah.
And so I walk into that with like a mindset of experimentation, not of a low self-worth, or I want to I'm not good enough, right? If I don't have this. Very different mindset. Very different mindset. But for someone who is trying to reverse disease or lose weight, yeah, when you're doing that, you do need to pay attention to certain things. In my opinion, if you want to be aggressive about it and really make headway quickly,
Yeah.
you absolutely need to monitor those things because you cannot trust your judgment or your cravings because you're metabolically unwell and your hormones are playing with your appetite and everything else. That's what I'm saying is these foods didn't cause the disease. The foods we're talking about eating as carbs did not cause disease because people were eating them without thought and never got disease. That's coming from a different point of view or a different starting point.
Yeah.
So that's where I do think though the mindset should never be of an unworthiness.
Mm.
It's it's not a place where you're punishing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to get the low body fat and the physique, or you're reversing disease, or you're just, I mean, it should never come from a place of punishment.
Yeah.
You should feel better. Like when I did Carnivore for 2 weeks, I played with it. I'd already been through my whole low carb intermittent fasting thing, started coming up, and I tried, I'm just going to do Carnivore 2 weeks. I felt terrible immediately. I'm like, okay, this is reminding me of when I ran myself into the ground last time under fueling, and I couldn't get enough calories in me without feeling absolutely full. I was force feeding myself to get enough fat and meat to get to an adequate amount of calories so I wasn't dehydrated and under fuel. And it was like, this doesn't feel natural. This does not feel right for me. I can't eat enough like this. I'm literally sick of looking at meat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that's not, no, I've already put myself in a position of forcing something and ignoring what my body was telling me. And I'm like, I'm not going to ignore what's it telling me now. And all I had to go was about a week or two in and felt awful. I'm like, this is not going to work for me either. So, and she's saying she's 100% for the physique. Yeah. Track, girl. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Track, look at it, but don't fear. We're saying don't fear the food. Yeah.
My perspective on weight loss at this point is that it has to come from a foundation of nourishment.
Yes.
You cannot, I mean, I think in order to be healthy and to, keep your metabolism strong, you have to start with nourishment. So, people coming from eating, super low calorie or just under eating on keto carnivore and then coming into adding in some carbs and expecting weight loss to immediately start happening, that's a tough sell. Like, I think you have to, if you want to do it I'm talking to myself, if I want to do it in a healthy way, I have to start with that high metabolism and my nourishment, my micro and macronutrients like topped off. And then you're at a place where you can maybe lower for a little while, like do a cut. But if you don't have that foundation of metabolism and nourishment, I think it's just going to be the same diet spiral
Right.
that we've been on since, the 80s. So
yeah, I lost fat without cutting calories. I never went to bed hungry.
Mm.
know, I did it by changing the ratio of carbs to fat.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it took, and backing off the protein a little bit. When I wanted to burn the fat off, I burned off more fat. I don't, um, I didn't need to cut calories, or I didn't need to, let me put it this way. I didn't need to undereat or eat beyond where my satiety level was. I didn't want more food. There were times when I was making myself eat more because I knew I would feel better the next day, or because I had a workout, or whatever it was. If anything, I was trying to get enough food in because I knew how, like, I was getting satisfied long before I hit my normal calorie count. I was a little concerned about it, and I was trying to get more food in. But then I relaxed. I'm just going to go with what my body's telling me while I'm eating this way, and it was. And if that's a little less on one day and a little more on others, I'm okay with that. And so it was more about quality of food, and then which foods I was eating in order to make the weight loss drop. But it was never intentionally restricting calories. Yeah. My wife did it when I did it too. She dropped 10 pounds in that 7-week period. And we even traveled in the middle of that, where we had to go off and come back, and it was interrupted, and we still were losing weight even while we were traveling. I think it was that ramp up of metabolism that you just mentioned. It actually sped up our metabolism from having, been restricted. And she'd been low carb for a long time, and took 10 pounds off that had been on her for a long time, like many, many years. 10 pounds, a weight she had not seen in a very long time. And we're both in our mid-50s. So it's not like, we're not spring chickens, right? This doesn't just like fall off because we went on a jog. Yeah. It's like nothing else changing shifted macronutrient input. And I'd already increased my carbs at this point, but I really took it up. And then she followed me into this sort of playing with the fruit fast in her own way, like similar to what you did. Mm-hmm. And it was magical. It was like, how is this happening? It's effortless. And there was no yo-yo. Yeah. Like, you get down there and she can maintain, like, she monitors the fat intake, not super low, a healthy place.
Yes.
But as soon as you monitor that, and it's like, oh, it's easy to maintain. There's no yo-yo. There's no weird like binging. There's no, I missed this. I got to eat it now. There's none of that.
Start Monday.
Yeah. There's no binge. I didn't feel like I needed, there was no, people have cheat days. Like first of all, I never did, because I just want to eat crappy food. Like, I don't want crappy food, like bad. If it makes me feel bad, It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I need a binge. If anything, I would intentionally add more protein and fat on the weekend, just kind of refuel some nutrients from certain foods to kind of cycle in the fat. So I did more of a fat cycle. So I'd cycle in the fat and make myself eat a little more of those proteins and fats to restore some of that. And then I would sink back into more of the super high carb, low fat. And it was in that cycling that I maintained the nutrients I need, I maintained muscle, and was able to take the fat off at a regular, a pretty, at just under a pound a week. Yeah. That's not drastic at all.
Yeah.
But it was all fat.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think we should probably try to get through some of these questions, because we've been we're coming up on an hour and a half, which I knew that as soon as we got talking that we'd just be able to keep going and going. So let's see if we can get through some of these questions real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So we talked about Jessica. She has some comments up here about trying to figure out macros, currently on less than 30 grams of fat, but no weight loss, stuck at a set point. And so I feel like I'm in a very similar place to you, Jessica. Last 10 or 15 pounds, but and I've reduced my fat, but the weight's not just falling off. I'm in a place where I'm just like, I want to just do this for a while and kind of see what my baseline is with this, with eating to satiety, not being, micromanaging anything, really just eating this way. And, if my body starts to release the weight, fantastic. If not, maybe there'll be a time where I do some kind of a cut, but it will be really, really gentle, like as gentle as possible. I don't want huge stress response. And I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not there yet. So, I don't have a lot of advice, but you were mentioning tracking, right?
Yeah. Well, and are you, definitely track to make sure you're on target. Sounds like she is, with knowing what's actually going in. And Jessica, are you working out? Because I found exercise is very beneficial for moving that sugar into the right place, into the muscle. And so the writer, or the guy who formulated the sugar diet originally, is actually a guy who trains bodybuilders and gets bodybuilders ready for shows down in Miami. And not too many people know who that is, but he's big on, strength training, a little high intensity here and there, like short bouts of high intensity here and there throughout your week, and then a lot of the low end, like walking, low end zone 2 or less, throughout the week. So activity. And that's because as far as I'm concerned, if you're worried about your health, and if you're concerned about, you want to drop weight, exercise has to be part of the regimen, or you're really missing a giant piece. And it's not something to be skipped. It's not because you have a bad diet. It's just because it helps move and mobilize your energy properly, and in a more in a way that's going to give you that extra physique, that chiseled physique. You've got to hang on the muscle, build the muscle, build as in do movement that moves energy through it, that stimulates hanging on to the muscle, make sure that muscle is active, so then it's taking on the glycogen. And it directs your body where to store energy, whether in muscle rather than in fat cells, for the amount of energy it wants to hang on to. Let's hold it as glycogen, not fat. And so it's telling your body, hey, we need more energy in these muscles for the activity we want to do. So then you end up storing more glycogen. But it's definitely a big part of that. I'm not saying you're not exercising. I'm just saying make sure that's part of the mix. Yeah. But there were times when we did the fast thing. Like I could do several days with fat below 10 grams, but I knew I could do that 3-4 days. And I was like, my body's okay. No, I'm done. Come out, bring the fat back up closer to 30 or 40 for a couple of days, and then sink back into that. And that was kind of like that fat cycling. My wife couldn't do that for 3 or 4 days. I think women tend to be a little more sensitive to cortisol. So I'm not saying some women can't. I'm saying there's more so than not. I hear the issues with cortisol, whether in the carnivore community or in with your super restricting fat, that you want to be sensitive to that as a woman. The fact that cortisol is going to have a different impact on you than it might a man.
Yep.
And so she could probably do like a day and a half like that at the most, 2 of the real super low fat days, and then come out and go to 30 grams on the third day. But usually it was a day and a half of that. So the fruit all day, no starch and protein, or maybe a little starch, and then do the starch and protein at the end of the day on the second day, and then cycle back into it. So it's just, and that was that aggressive weight loss. But it was, again, 10 pounds in 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And it's in the maintenance level of the 30 grams of fat, adequate protein, higher carb, being able to maintain that. So you don't have to do that super low fat, even though that's what gets you down there. You don't have to do that to necessarily maintain close to it. Just like you're maintaining a healthy, like where you are at that, your maintenance phase.
Yeah.
That's a good, healthy place to be. You're getting the nutrients you need without causing stress.
Yeah.
And so, so it's probably slower to go that way. Whereas if you want aggressive, like we did, you get a little faster result. But I wouldn't do it that way for weeks and 2-3 weeks ongoing without coming out of those weekends and fueling up on more protein and fat on those 2 or 3 days. I wouldn't do that, because that would just because my body was telling me not to. 1, 2, it's just too aggressive for me. And so I think respecting, you can make headway and be a little aggressive, but still respect where your body is telling you and what you need personally. And, based on, there's needs for fat, there's needs for protein, a little restriction to make headway in your fat, and then to come back out. Like that kind of cycling movement is actually a very natural way to do that, and can help you avoid the bounce, the yo-yo, or the binging.
Yes. Oh yeah. When you're trying to reduce weight, avoiding that pendulum swing is really, really important. Yeah. Okay,
Um,
Michelle is asking, if you've been carnivore for a few years, how long will it take for our body to switch? That's a tough one. I'll say for me, it's been about 2 years, and um, I have seen things change throughout, this whole 2 years. It definitely the switch from moderate fat, 200-ish grams of carbs to low fat, high carb. I saw a really big change there. So it kind of depends on, how quickly you change things, and your own personal, like your own gut, like it. For me, it's been 2 years. I'll just say that. What do you think?
when I went, I was at 100, 150 a day already at low carb. And I jumped to 250, 300, but I'm active. Um, and then when I went to 354 and I just did it, so I think most people coming out of keto or carnivore, your body is already making a good 150 grams of carbs a day just for your brain and some of your needs. And if you're active, it might be making more. And what you want to do is shut that off. You want to shut off your body's need for making excessive muscle gluconeogenesis in your body. And that transition where it actually tells it to shut off is only going to come if you give it what it needs. It's got to know that, hey, I'm good. I don't have to keep doing this because it's coming in exogenously. So I think going to 150, 100, 150, and then allowing a little turbulence early on, and then watching over a period of maybe a week or two that settles down, and then your body will begin to respond like it should, where the blood sugar goes up and then it comes down within 60 to 90 minutes after your meal. Give your body a chance to adjust, but also give it the stimulus it needs to know it's safe to make that adjustment. And then once you get to that, I mean, I know, like, for instance, we've been talking about Jay and Mike. They like to get people to like 2 to 1 carbs to protein immediately, and then adjust from there, usually adjusting up. So if you're eating 100, 120 grams of protein, just 200, 240 grams of carbs. That's where they like to start people, and then they adjust up. Not that they would take someone who's been carnivore for 6 years and just maybe double it. I don't know. But they would try to get there pretty quickly within a matter of weeks, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people I've talked to, I've had a lot of DMs from people who are like coming out of the carnivore and keto, and they're like, what do I do? How do I get this? I want to fix my blood sugar. How do I want to lose weight? Starting at 150, 100, 150 seems to, as a first week, let that settle in for a week or two, and then adding 50 grams a week and seeing how your body does and responds to it seems to work for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's your experiment. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to figure it out and see what you're comfortable with. But the thing is, you've got to turn off that mechanism. And the only way it's going to turn off is if you're giving it the signal that there's plenty of food available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
go ahead.
It gets even more complicated when you start talking about what kinds of carbohydrates you're adding. And you could have a vastly different experience adding certain things versus, and so it is such a individual experience, and you have to kind of play with it. And I like what you said about experiencing some turbulence and expecting that. Like, you can't expect to go from carnivore to adding any significant amount of carbohydrates without seeing some blood sugar spikes. You're going to, have the dreaded blood sugar spikes. That is just, par for the course. And you kind of, and I hate the idea of trust the process, because that's used in so many other areas. And, but there is a sense in which you just kind of have to, and I had to do this where I was like, I can't look at my blood sugar. I don't know what it is. It's probably terrible, but I just need to like stay on this path. And then, eventually I made it through, and now my blood sugar is ridiculously low, not low, but it's
range. Yeah.
It's in range. Like, it's mind blowing to me that I can eat 100 grams of carbohydrates and hardly see a spike and it come right back down. Like, it's just something that I didn't even think was possible when I was keto.
Yeah, and that the thing is the post-meal spike, or they call it a spike, that makes it sound bad. It's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. Your blood sugar's supposed to go up, and then insulin's supposed to go up, and then it's supposed to help turn. And one thing, the benefit is the insulin turns off those stress hormones. And that's kind of the benefit of insulin going up, and tells by, hey, we have plenty. And it turns off those stress hormones, and the sugar gets absorbed into the tissues. That's normal. That's okay. It's when you have elevated blood sugar all day long, or it starts off when you're fasted and it's already high. That's when you have health risk. There's no health risk in your blood sugar going up for 60 to 90 minutes after a meal.
Yeah.
That's normal. If that is been made a fear in your mind through some sort of diet mantra, you just need to turn that around. That's not the truth. There's no element of truth in that. That's not supported by science. That's not a health recommendation. That's a dogmatic recommendation. It's just not. Let your blood sugar go up, because it's going to come back down as insulin does its job. And insulin is not the devil. Insulin is your friend.
Poor insulin.
Or it's like it's white for all sorts of things. It's like I'm trying to keep your muscle on your body. I'm trying to help turn down your stress hormones and make your life better. And everybody's just so fearful of it. And
it's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of it. Okay, Lillian says, I think we all agree that elevated fasting insulin is bad. Yes. If we had to say that, yes, because some people hear us talk about carbs and then they'll say, oh, that means you think that high insulin is good. Because in their minds, like high insulin and carbs just go together.
Fasting insulin is not the same as your insulin goes up to bring your blood sugar back down.
Right.
That's not even in the same. My fasting insulin is lower than 99% of the world.
Yeah, seriously.
At 2.6, good luck finding. You got to be. It's someone who's like, you got to find someone who's living in a culture or somewhere away from the world to really get a lot of people at that low. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying
it's not correlating with the number of carbs you're eating.
The carbs are helping it stay low.
Right.
That's really the flip you got to get. You understand? When my carbs went up, my fasting insulin went down.
Wow.
Because it doesn't need to work that hard so what causes a diabetic's insulin to go up is not the carbs they're eating per se. It's the glucose coming out of their liver because of the elevated gluconeogenesis. That's what's keeping their blood sugar high. That's what's helping. And the same thing that's making someone who's been on a low carb diet for a long period of time, it's making their blood sugar go high. It's the same thing. It's a parallel hormonal environment. That's why I said it's not a good diet for someone who's experiencing insulin resistance, because you're just doubling down on the pathology of the hormonal environment. The stress hormones are what's increasing the blood sugar, which then causes the high blood sugar and the high insulin backing up, which then that causes your fasting insulin. Fasting insulin is where it's baseline level. My baseline insulin level is low because it only comes out to play when I eat. It comes out to play. It takes what I eat and helps bring it down, bring down my cortisol levels, and then it goes back home. If you're constantly high blood sugar, like because you're under fueling with carbs, or you have insulin resistance from some other, mechanisms, whether it's gut or the fat, oxidation of the mitochondria, then your blood sugar's high all the time, which means insulin's got to stay out longer to try to push that back down. That's when you see the high fasting insulin. And so it's what's unusual, what's special about, I think, some of the carnivore situation is you don't see a lot of high fasting insulin all the time with their high A1C and high blood sugar, because they're eating so low carb. Mm-hmm. So their gluconeogenesis is high, keeping that blood sugar up and keeping the and the cortisol and keeping, basically all of that is staying high. But you don't see a lot of high fasting insulin with these with the insulin resistance being caused by the low or no carb diet. And I don't have the perfect explanation for why it's different. There are theories about that. But the high fasting glucose is still a problem. Yeah. Even though the insulin is low. Better is have low glucose and low insulin. And that's where we see with most of your energy coming from carbohydrates and less of your energy coming from glucose oxidation,
Right.
you can have a
Vicky,
lower. Go ahead.
Vicky is saying personal experience right here on my high fat diet. My fasting glucose was 122. On high carb fasting glucose 87. So yeah,
Mhm.
it just, it's one of those things again where it's like on the surface, it seems like it makes sense that the lower your sugar intake, the lower
Yeah.
your blood sugar will be, and it just does not work out that way. And I love what Jen was saying here. Something I was thinking about was people think just because you get an insulin spike from eating carbs, that will automatically make your fasting insulin elevated. Two very different things, which
Yeah.
is exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, gotta get the rest of these questions here. Let's see. I don't know if this one has a question. Coming from keto for 8 years, hypothyroid, I was not feeling well and weight crept back on. Felt like a failure because I kept craving carbs. Yes, that's so sad. Now I feel so much better on carbs and starches. That is amazing.
Yep.
Let's see. Um,
Someone's I see is asking, does carbs and starches help with hypothyroid? Yes.
I believe so. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it
Uh,
turns it back on. It tells it's okay. Come out. Let's make more energy. We have
yeah.
enough energy on board. Let's make more energy. Um, so absolutely.
Nancy says, sugar diet helped me get over the carb fear. That is one of the great things about the sugar diet. And I love it. I do not crave as I eat fruit, and I don't crave fatty foods either. I eat veggies and starch and loving it.
Mm.
Yep, same experience here. Um, yeah. We already talked to Jessica about all of that. Her comment here, they don't tell you in the bioenergetic world, they don't tell you how to lose weight. They just keep saying don't restrict and you'll magically lose weight. I feel you on that. Like, and I'm kind of in that place right now of, don't restrict, fuel myself, get all the nutrients, but I haven't magically lost a bunch of weight yet either. But amazingly, I have not gained weight either. So that's got to count for something. Let's see. Any more questions? Okay. Intermittent fasting, 16 hours, beneficial or not?
I'm not a fan.
Personally, I'm not either, but
I did it to death. So I wore myself out on it. I did it. I would do 17, 18 hours, then work out and then eat. But yeah, I'm not a big, I just certainly not on a regular basis. Sometimes if it happens because I get busier, I'm just relaxed and I don't feel like eating on a weekend. And it's like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to eat something now because I'm just chilling out or going on a walk or whatever. Maybe I'll let that happen, but I'm not intentionally trying to fast. And I would never restrict my hunger. If I wake up and I like to eat right out of the gate, bring cortisol down, and pay attention and fuel my body. That's healthier. I think you run into the same problems with the cortisol and the elevated cortisol, adrenaline, gluconeogenesis with fasting as you would with a low or no carb. You're going to have a similar stress hormone environment elevated. And if you already have insulin resistance with some sort of symptoms from that, you're just, again, doubling down on it. I don't think it's I used to think it was.
yeah.
I don't think it's a good tool for releasing or reversing insulin resistance at all.
Yeah. Same. I'd say people talk about intermittent fasting and how great it is. And I used to think that as well. I now think you have to be really careful with it. It possibly has some benefits. I'm not going to say I definitely know it doesn't. But it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I see that there could be these negatives too. So it's like,
Mm.
let's hold it carefully. Let's see. Now that I've switched, I get adrenaline headache, a pinched brain feeling whenever my blood glucose goes back down to baseline. Will that go away? I feel like I have to eat carbs constantly. Oh, that's interesting. I don't have any good info about that. Do you have any thoughts? Obviously, we're not doctors.
Yeah, and I think there's more going on than just like there may be some other variable involved there that's it's hard to reveal or dig into in this kind of format. There might be something on a personal, like from your personal history or how you came into it, or what's something else going on in your body that would be hard to decipher without doing a deep dive. You know what I mean? Like looking at blood work, asking a number of questions. So that's a lot. Um, but and it depends on how long you've been doing it. Like you've switched when, and how long has it been, and is adjusting to it, and you're assuming it's from adrenaline that's causing the headache, and it may be, but it's we don't want to oversimplify it. Like we could speculate, but we don't have enough knowledge to actually give you a knowledgeable or answer that you could even rely on. It's just there's too many variables, and that's long-winded too many variables.
Yeah, you could do some experimenting, like trying to eat different meals with kind of different macro ratios, have a little bit more fat, and see if there's a difference. It'd be something that you kind of have to play with, and it could just be an adaptation. I know I went through a lot of adaptation as well, changing things up, and sometimes you have the turbulence and you kind of just have to get through it. Sometimes it's something that you need to deal with. So it's a long-winded way of saying we don't know.
Trial and error. I mean, a little bit of trial and error. Yeah, you could play with the fat, like you said, and then also allow more time.
Yeah. All right. A couple more here. I've gone from zero carb carnivore to 100 to 150 grams of carbs in 2 weeks. I was starving the first few days and still get hungry sooner than I did on carnivore. Not a question necessarily, but I never was one of those people that was able to intermittent fast without thinking about it, or that I never got hungry when I was eating carnivore. I probably get hungry. Well, I don't even know. I think I get hungry about the same intervals now that I did back when I was keto. When I'm fruit fasting, I will get hungrier faster. But as far as eating my regular meals, I don't feel like my hunger like time frame is changed a lot since I was carnivore. Do you have any experience with that?
Well, when I tried eating just carnivore, I couldn't get myself to eat enough. So I mean, I just would get killed my appetite, which I hated. I like eating. I like having an appetite when I eat. It makes the food taste better. So I'm okay with hunger. And if you've been on carnivore and you're used to killing it with just fat and protein, your adrenals are pumping out everything else, which is killing your appetite maybe a little bit. This is the part of the transition. So I would say follow your hunger. You didn't note how much you dropped your fat. I'm assuming you dropped protein and fat back. You didn't just add 150 grams of carbs or whatever. But I would, get hungry. You're going to have to eat more often. You might need, I don't know how many you're eating before, but 3 or 4 meals. Go with that. Listen to your body. This is part of the experiment, and go up. That might be your body telling you eat more. It's like to bring that stress hormone down. Your body doesn't want to be stressed out and pumping this stuff out all the time. The more you can bring those down, the better you feel. And if you're active at all, man, 150 grams of carbs is nothing. I mean, that's like your brain will use that in a day. So if you're active, your nervous system, red blood cells, kidney, liver, and then muscles, they want to start using glycogen again, more actively, more, and so to me, that's a signal like time to go up.
Yeah. All right, I have 2 more questions I see here, and then we'll cut it off after that because we could just be here all day chatting and answering questions. But I have one from Mary, and one from Claudia.
Okay.
So Mary says, after a triple bypass, it's super scary trying to trust carbs again. Any advice? I'll just say that's a rough place to be in, and I said in this chat earlier, I am not going to sit here and say that I know for sure that I'm going to have the best health possible by eating exactly the way that I'm eating right now. I'm not going to say that I know for sure that I'm going to never get cancer or have a heart attack. I can't say that. I just can't. This is what makes sense to me right now. And so that's what I'm doing. So all that to say, I don't have a lot of advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
Whole food carbs didn't cause your heart disease because,
Mm.
again, we go back to 1900 and most cardiologists never even saw a heart attack. We had very little heart disease. It was very rare. Now it's 1 in 4. What's changed since then? All the processed food we had that makes up 60 to 70% of the American diet. So the elements, various elements within processed food is what started causing our heart disease problem. Okay. Our plaque and the fact that there was a lot of smoking going on in the 40s and 50s. I'm assuming you don't smoke. So it was diet. So the carbohydrates didn't cause heart disease because we see, again, in indigenous tribes, like there's one in South America, the Tsimane, Tsimane, South American, 85% of their diet comes from carbohydrates. They are, in published research shows them having the healthiest hearts of all the people over 40. Of people 40 years and up, they have the healthiest hearts of any culture or indigenous group. And so it's more likely that stress and oxidative stress is what causes disease. And oxidative stress can come from a variety of things, from the processed food, in our gut, in the mitochondria, personal stress, trauma. Stress is what's causing all of these metabolic diseases and these problems and the plaques and so forth. So it's reducing oxidative stress, and whole food carbs aren't causing it. So again, as I said earlier, my cholesterol has dropped significantly. It dropped initially about 20%. And then when I did my next switch of fat to carbs, it dropped again by another 30%. So I don't think cholesterol would be causing necessarily the heart attack. I'm not going to say that. But if you have heart disease, there's cholesterol involved in the mix, and reducing it certainly would, in that environment, reduce risk. And so most people who shift their diet in this way do see a drop in cholesterol. So I mean, total cholesterol, LDL, ApoB, all the markers drop. Mm-hmm. So it's and that's in my opinion, not just the fat, the decreased use of fat, but also an improved use of that cholesterol for making hormones. And I think this element of stress, because we know when people have trauma or disease, whenever you have any kind of stress going on, that can elevate cholesterol as well, because your immune system is ramping up and using it. So all that to say, a clean, higher carb, lower fat diet is probably the way you want to go with heart disease, in my current opinion, which is not a medical opinion.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I put a playlist link in the chat. That is my high carb days of eating playlist, and even it starts out with the sugar diet, my sugar diet days, which were quite fun. But for Claudia wanting a typical day of eating, definitely check that out for a lot of different ones of mine. But maybe we could end with this, Zane. I'd love to hear what a typical day of eating for you looks like now on your sugar diet.
Okay. Well, so I'm in a maintenance phase. I'm not doing this sugar fasting, but I start off with mostly fruit in the morning and a little something in my coffee, a little cooked honey in my coffee. But it's pretty much fruit and some fruit juice for the first part of the day. Then somewhere around midday, I start working in my protein, maybe some starches like a white rice or a sweet potato. And then kind of work that around the workout depending on what I'm doing that day. So there's a little bit of flexibility in there. But I usually I just like starting off with the fruit juice and the energy to get me going and to bring the stress hormones down. And the second half of the day is when I start working in my protein, a little more fat with that protein, and some starch along with that around it. But I mean, considering I'm eating 350, 400 plus grams of carbs, and I'm only eating about 120 to 145 grams of protein, and many times that's like less than 40 grams of fat, I don't need to eat those all day to get in what I need. I can start midday and finish up by
Mhm.
7 and be good. But to get all those carbs in, I start early, and it feels great.
Yeah.
So and it's keeping me lean right now.
Nice. All right. Well, we have been on for almost 2 hours, which the time has flown.
I don't know if I owe you an apology or
No, this has been great. I mean, I feel like we could just keep going and going,
I
but,
know, I
um,
know.
I do have kids to get back to, so
Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
fending for themselves at the moment. But this has been awesome. We will have to do it again.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
anyone, watching from my channel, go check out Zane's channel and definitely subscribe, because you are doing tons of other interviews with people who are, in different places on the spectrum with this whole keto to carbs thing. And so it's been really, really fascinating to watch your videos and how you're connecting with other people. So highly encourage everyone to go subscribe there. And yeah, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and the conversation, and it's been fun.